like you said, the communist army was not documenting their war crimes. And there's something interesting that I've been thinking about, which is in a democracy with free media and free information, there is a cost to that. And it's an interesting one because here we learned so much about what our country has done wrong. We tally all the war crimes, we teach all the atrocities, we teach our history and all the mistakes that history has included. But authoritarian regimes don't do that. They don't do that. They they don't gloss over it. They erase it from history. So, I mean, whether it's Cuba or it's China or, I mean, North Korea is another great example of how far you can go with a regime deciding that free information is not important. And what's actually important is to create an image of the country as utopianistic and prevailing and perfect. And so we easily say, like, oh, free information is the best. We should know about our country, everything that our country does. But at the same time, is there a danger? Or rather, I think there is a danger in being so open with covering a country's errors and mistakes, is that it seems actually like you end up with a population that's being led astray by other countries' lack of free information. So here, if you're an American, you can very easily recount all the atrocities, all the mistakes, all the horrible things that your own country has done. But you're not going to be so easily able to recall all the atrocities and the errors that authoritarian regimes have done, unless they're so particularly egregious that you learn about them in your own country's education, which we do on some level, but not that much. I mean, we learn about American history, and we learn an American history that's full both the mistakes and the positives. Mostly the mistakes is what I remember from my education at this point, which is fine. I'm not saying I want to be indoctrinated, but is there a risk then that you have a population that actually turns against its own country because it says, look at all these horrible things we do. We're doing all these horrible things, without realizing that actually the other forms of government just have erased those horrible things. They're not teaching them. So I think there's an interesting thing in that kind of danger of free coverage, is that, I mean, you learn so much about what your country does wrong, and it's up to you in a way to make sure you balance the scale by going out and seeking the information about what other things have done wrong too, because if not, I don't think the American system does a good job of fairly educating on all those different systems.
Things tend to change over time. I mean, it certainly wasn't the case in America that we always looked back and looked at the negative things that we've done and the problems we've done. And it's to be fair, even today, I'm sure there are to pretend like that we live in some moment where there are no crimes committed that we just don't know about yet would be naive. So, is there a danger? Yes. There is, but it's more of a challenge because I still believe it to be the best thing. If we don't look and face the problems in our society and in our history and in the way things work, then we'll never be able to fix anything. So I totally endorse that, and I'm for it. You do need to balance that with understanding history, with understanding other regimes, other forms of government in the world and what they've done. You need to balance it with that. You also need to not judge people by today's standards that lived 500 years ago, because that just simply makes zero sense. That doesn't make sense. You need to do that. And then you also have to understand that this is the best system. It's just a painful system. Mm-hmm. But that's what makes it good, is that, it's good that we're able to look at the things we've done wrong and to debate them and to talk about them and then to fix them. Because if you don't know what's wrong, you can't fix it. Now, what you're saying is also true, though, that if you get so overbalanced to the point where all you see is the negative about your own country, and then then you're not going to help anything. I mean, if that's the point, if the point is to try to make things better, which I still believe in, that idea of you make things better in your country if possible. That sounds, me saying that sounds like, it sounds odd to me. Like it sounds, but I believe that still. I think most people still do believe that. I don't know. That's what I believe. So yeah, there's a danger to it, but that's your responsibility. Take responsibility. I mean, learn.
That's the interesting thing about the democracy in the form that we have it, is that it really does place a lot of work on the individual. But the thing is that it's the cost of freedom. You know, that's what it is that you have to do the work for yourself. You have to you don't get indoctrinated. And as much as people love to say, the American system indoctrinates, it's like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It has to teach you something.
It does a bit. It does a bit.
Take information and give it to you. Like there's,
sure.
You can be homeschooled. You can take up issue with the lectures, and you can bring problems against the lessons that you're being taught. I mean, it's not even like anything is set in stone. I mean, you have currently the public schooling education is being ripped apart by trying to have different ideas taught in it, and whether we should be teaching whatever these politics of the day, or we should be doing this. I mean, public school education and just education in general at the grade school level is constantly being tinkered with. So I mean, just by that nature, it's not this type of like totalitarian indoctrination system. And so but
to some degree, it is literally state-sponsored. It is a state-sponsored school that has a set of beliefs that they are telling children. So, by definition, to some degree,
beliefs is a choice of words there, because math is a belief. You know, like there's
others
you'd
would
have
argue.
To decide how. Or
find them on
others
Twitter.
Would argue. Yeah, they would. You'd have to decide. I mean, at that point, you can have no education that doesn't. There's a problem there where we're unable to teach people without indoctrinating them, which I don't think is true. I think if you teach through a certain framework rather than trying to just impose information and a worldview, which I'm sure there are individual teachers or even schools that do that, and that there's a problem with that. And I would say that this is by no means saying that our education system is brilliant at all. I think it's a mess. But I don't think it's as perfectly organized, some conspiracy that there's some cohesive attempt to indoctrinate people. I mean, go check out the lesson plans in any type of authoritarian country, and then you can see what the fuck the difference is. I
think the only solution to this, in my view, is to allow for questioning and allow for skepticism. And if that's allowed, which it is for the most part, though I'm a little concerned right now how much it's being dampened down. But as long as it's allowed, you'll have a kind of self-correcting system, so that whatever power structures may be indoctrinating this or that, as long as you have this freedom to question it, the individual, whether it's a student, citizen, whatever, person who lives here, then we're safe-ish. We can work it out. We can balance it out. This is the belief that's founded on Enlightenment principles and concepts of reason and things. And there is a school of thought which we know, postmodernism, which doesn't agree with my basic assumptions of this. So that is what it is. But I'm sticking to this. So because it's kind of worked. It hasn't worked great.
It's worked better than everything else. So there's that. I mean, what other alternative systems do you have to a democracy? I mean, we can argue the smaller details, like we should have socialized healthcare or something. Yeah, sure, whatever. But that's not, you can still have a democracy, and you still have to have the ability for diverse viewpoints, for constant questioning, for pushback and debate. That's, I'm happy to have all the ideas as long as I can criticize and question all of them.